The morning I found out my brother had stolen my entire financial identity, I was eating cereal at my kitchen counter in my pajamas. I didn't throw anything. I didn't scream. I just sat there, spoon halfway to my mouth, staring at 3 letters from 3 different banks, all addressed to me, all marked past due, all for accounts I had never opened in my life. Combined balance, $83,400. I set the spoon down very slowly, and I smiled. Not because anything was funny, but because some part of me, the part that had been watching my brother for 32 years, wasn't even surprised. My name is Claire. I'm 29 years old. I'm a licensed physical therapist working at an outpatient clinic in Columbus, Ohio. I have a modest apartment, a used Honda, a solid credit score, or I did until approximately 6 months before those letters arrived. I pay my bills on time. I show up early. I don't ask for much. My whole life, I've been the responsible one. The one my parents called when something needed fixing. The one my brother called when something needed paying. My brother's name is Derek. He's 35. He's charming, funny, and completely incapable of taking care of himself in any sustainable way. Not because he can't, he's intelligent, genuinely smart, but because he's never had to. Our parents made sure of that. Derek got the second chances. Derek got the benefit of the doubt. Derek got the car paid off, the rent covered, the "this is the last time we promise" phone calls that were never the last time. I got the expectation that I would understand. Growing up, I told myself the dynamic was just how families worked. Oldest child carries more responsibility. Middle children get overlooked. I was the youngest, but I was also the girl, and in our household that meant something specific. It meant I was supposed to be nurturing, patient, willing. My mother had a way of framing everything Derek needed as an opportunity for me to show what kind of person I was. Claire, you're so good with money. Help your brother understand his lease. Claire, you're so level-headed. Talk to Derek, he listens to you. Claire, family is everything. You know that. I did know that. I believed it. Completely. For most of my 20s. The first time I helped Derek financially, I was 23. He needed first and last month's rent on a new apartment after losing his job at a logistics company. I had just started working. I had almost nothing, but I had more than he did, and my mother called it just a loan between siblings. I gave him $2,400. He never mentioned it again. After that, it happened in increments so small I almost didn't notice. A car payment here, a utility bill there, a just until payday that stretched into months. Each individual amount was manageable. Each individual request came wrapped in a reason that made sense. He was between jobs. He was getting back on his feet. He had a plan. The plan was always just about to work out. By the time I was 27, I had given Derek somewhere between $15,000 and $20,000. I had never once been paid back. When I tried to talk about it, my mother became very quiet and then said something like, "He's struggling, Claire. Is money really more important to you than your brother?" And I would feel the guilt settle over me like a physical weight, and I would let it go. What I didn't realize was that while I was letting things go, Derek was watching, learning what I would accept, understanding exactly how far the word family could stretch before I pushed back. Apparently, it could stretch very far. I found out later, much later, that Derek had opened the first credit card in my name 18 months before those letters arrived. He had my social security number from years ago, when my parents had both of us on a shared family account and he'd simply memorized it. He had my date of birth, obviously, my mother's maiden name, which was a security question answer I'd used since college. He had enough. The first card had a $12,000 limit. He maxed it in 4 months. Minimum payments were set to autopay from a checking account he'd opened using my information at a bank I'd never used. I never saw the statements. I never received a single alert. By the time he opened the second card, $28,000 limit, he was already 6 months into paying the minimum on the first one, just enough to keep it from flagging immediately. The third card was the one that finally broke the surface. He applied for a $45,000 limit card through a lender that happened to use the same credit bureau as my car loan refinance, which I'd applied for completely separately. The new inquiry hit. The refinance officer called me and mentioned, almost in passing, that my credit utilization was unusually high for someone with my income profile. I'm sorry, I said. My what? She pulled up my full report on the call and started reading. 3 accounts, $83,000. The oldest one dating back a year and a half. I remember the sound of her voice going slightly careful and professional as she said, Ms. Claire, I think you may want to speak with our fraud department. I sat in my car in the clinic parking lot for 20 minutes after that call. The lunch hour traffic moved past the window. Someone's kid on a bike rang a little bell at the crosswalk. The world was perfectly normal and completely unchanged, and I sat there holding my phone in both hands, thinking about Derek's face the last time I'd seen him. Thanksgiving, 4 months ago, laughing at something on his phone, accepting another plate of food from our mother, completely at ease. I thought about how he'd hugged me when I left, how he'd said, "Love you, sis." I drove home. I did not call my mother. I called my friend Priya, who is a paralegal and the most unshakable person I have ever met. And I read her the numbers from memory, and she was quiet for a long moment and then said very clearly, "Do not contact your family yet. Do not. First thing tomorrow, you call the FTC, you call all 3 credit bureaus, and you find a consumer rights attorney. Tonight, write down everything you remember, every loan you've ever given Derek, every conversation, every date. Do it now while it's fresh. My mother is going to—" "Claire." Her voice was firm. "Your brother committed federal crimes. This is not a family conversation. This is a crime." I wrote for 3 hours that night, 15 pages. I started from the beginning, every dollar, every request, every guilt trip. My hand cramped up around page 10. I kept going. The next morning, I called the Federal Trade Commission and filed an identity theft report. I called Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax and placed fraud alerts on all 3. I contacted each of the 3 lenders directly and spoke with their fraud departments. Every single representative was professional and clear. With a police report and identity theft documentation, the accounts would be investigated and almost certainly discharged. My credit, they said, could be fully restored. The process would take time, but it was straightforward. Then I called a consumer rights attorney named Patricia, who Priya had used before. Patricia answered on the second ring, listened to the full story without interrupting, and said 2 things that I needed to hear. First, you have an exceptionally clear case. Second, the person who did this to you is looking at federal charges for identity theft and wire fraud, regardless of the family relationship. That is not a small thing. You need to decide how you want to proceed. I told her I wanted to proceed completely. She booked me for a full consultation the next afternoon. That evening, 36 hours after the refinance officer's call, I drove to my parents' house. I want to be honest about what I was feeling. I was not calm. I was not collected. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel, and I had to breathe through my nose the entire drive. But I had made a decision, and the decision was that I was going to look at the people in that house, and I was going to see them clearly, maybe for the first time. No more softening. No more interpreting their actions in the most generous possible light. Just the truth. My mother answered the door in her reading glasses with a dish towel over her shoulder. She smiled when she saw me. "Claire? I didn't know you were coming. Are you hungry? Is Derek here?" Something shifted in her face. Just slightly. "He's in the living room. Why?" Derek was on the couch watching TV. He looked up when I walked in, and I watched something move behind his eyes. Quick, there, and gone. Before his face rearranged itself into his usual easy smile. "Hey, what are you doing here?" I sat down across from him. I put the 3 bank letters on the coffee table. I slid them toward him one at a time. He looked at them. He didn't touch them. "Derek," I said, "I need you to explain these to me." My mother had come in behind me. I heard her footsteps stop. The silence lasted about 10 seconds. Then Derek said slowly, "Where did you get those?" "From my mailbox," I said. "They're addressed to me. They're for accounts I never opened. With my social security number, my signature, my date of birth." I paused. I spoke to the fraud departments at all 3 banks yesterday. I've already filed with the FTC. I have an attorney. I need you to tell me, out loud, what you did. Derek looked at our mother. She looked at him. That look, the one they exchanged, told me everything I needed to know about how long she had been aware. "Claire, Let's not make this into a whole thing, my mother said. She sat down, very composed, and folded the dish towel in her lap. Your brother was going through an incredibly hard time. He was trying to get back on his feet. He was going to pay it all back, Mom. My voice surprised me with its steadiness. Stop. He made a mistake. He committed federal identity theft. 3 counts. I turned back to Derek. I'm not asking you to explain yourself to me. I'm telling you what has already happened and what is going to happen. I have a police report filed. I have an attorney. The banks are investigating. You used my identity to open $83,000 in credit. That is a federal crime. Derek's jaw tightened. The easy smile was completely gone. You're going to call the police on your own brother. I called the police on whoever opened fraudulent accounts in my name, I said. That turned out to be you. This is unbelievable. He stood up, and now his voice was rising. I was going to pay it back. I just needed more time. I was in a bad place, Claire. I didn't have options. You had options. You asked me every single time you needed money for the last 6 years, and I gave it to you. Every time. I never said no. You had an option. You chose to steal from me instead. Steal. He laughed. But it was an ugly sound. It's a credit card. It's not like I took cash out of your wallet. You took $83,000 from my credit history, my financial future, and my name, I said. And you involved Mom. My mother's face crumpled then. She started talking about how hard Derek's life had been, how much pressure he was under, how family was supposed to hold each other up, how I had always had more stability than he did, and it was only fair. And I sat there and I listened to all of it. I let her say every word. I didn't interrupt. When she finished, I said, I love you both, and none of what you just said changes what I'm going to do. I stood up and picked up the letters and put them back in my bag. I looked at Derek one more time. His arms were crossed, and his expression was a complicated mix of anger and something that might have been shame, though with Derek it was hard to tell. I want you to know, I said quietly, that the hardest part of this isn't the money. It's that I would have helped you. If you had come to me and told me the truth, that you were drowning, that you needed help, that you didn't know what to do, I would have figured something out. I always did. But you didn't trust me enough to ask. You just took. I walked out. In my car, I sat for a moment. My hands were still. The shaking had stopped. I started the engine. The following weeks were procedural and sometimes exhausting, but they were also, strangely, clarifying. Patricia was thorough and methodical. The police investigation moved forward. Derek was contacted by detectives within 2 weeks. My mother called me 7 times in the first 3 days. I let every call go to voicemail. The messages went from pleading to angry to something almost quiet, which was the most unsettling register of all. My father, who had been largely absent from all of this, left one message that said he thought I was being hard on the family. I didn't call him back either. All 3 credit card accounts were flagged for fraud and removed for my report within 45 days. My credit score, once the accounts were cleared, actually improved from where it had been before Derek started. Patricia informed me that the district attorney's office had reviewed the case and that charges were being pursued. I was not responsible for any of the debt. The refinance went through. I got a better rate than I'd applied for originally. I blocked Derek's number on a Tuesday afternoon after he sent a text that said only, "You destroyed this family." I read it once. I thought about everything I wanted to say back. All the specific and accurate things I could have listed, all the years and the dollars and the quiet humiliations. Then I pressed block and put my phone in my pocket and went back to work. I haven't spoken to him since. Or to my mother, not in any real way. She sent a card at Christmas with a gift card inside. I didn't use the gift card. I didn't throw it away either. I put it in a drawer and I'm not sure what that means yet. But I think it means that grief doesn't follow logic, even when everything else does. What I know is this. I spent most of my adult life confusing obligation with love. I thought that saying yes, always yes, whatever was needed, whatever was asked, was proof of how much I cared about my family. I thought that the discomfort of being used was the price of belonging. I thought that if I just held on long enough and gave enough and asked for nothing, eventually I would be seen, valued, enough. I was wrong. Not about love, love is real, and it's still in me, and it still hurts, but about what love requires. Love does not require you to disappear into someone else's need. Love does not require you to hand over your name, your future, your credit history, your financial safety, your sense of self, piece by piece, year by year, while telling yourself that's just what families do. My therapist. I started seeing someone in the middle of all of this, which was maybe the best decision I've ever made. Asked me once what I would say to a friend who described the same situation. A friend whose brother had stolen her identity, whose mother had covered for him, who had been giving and giving since her early 20s and getting less than nothing back. I said, I'd tell her she deserved better. I'd tell her none of it was her fault. I'd tell her that protecting herself wasn't the same as abandoning her family. My therapist let me sit with that for a moment. Then she said, so why is it different when it's you? I didn't have a good answer. I've been working on that. My apartment is quiet in the mornings now. I make coffee and I sit by the window and I watch the street below. And there's a feeling I'm still getting used to. A lightness that I spent years mistaking for emptiness, but that I'm starting to understand is just space. Room to breathe. Room to be a person who belongs to herself. I still think about Derek sometimes. I wonder if he understands what he did, really understands it, or whether the self-justification runs so deep that it just settles into the story of his life as another hard thing that happened to him. I can't control that. I can't make him see it. I spent years trying to make him see things, and the only person that changed was me. Gradually, quietly, smaller, more careful, more willing to accept less. That version of me is gone now. I don't miss her the way I thought I would. I have good friends, meaningful work, and a credit score that is, frankly, excellent. I have a future that I built myself and that belongs entirely to me. I have the strange, hard-won knowledge that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself, and maybe even for the people who hurt you, is to stop pretending that what's happening is okay. The click of the deadbolt on my apartment door, the night I came home from filing the final paperwork, was one of the most satisfying sounds I've ever heard. Clean. Certain. Final. I made tea. I sat down. And for the first time in a very long time, I felt like I was home.